short-term rentals were banned and are still under a brief ban. A lot of cancellations in March and April because there were many stay-at-home orders in place. There were government restrictions. What are you doing in light of COVID-19 to make sure that your cleaning standards are such that it will keep my family and I safe and healthy? It was an opportunity to kind of pivot the business model into some of these long-term stays.
What's happening with Airbnb and short-term rentals? That's today's topic, and let's dive into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back again to another episode at Nova Rise. And as you can see, we have a change of scenery right here, and that's because I'm all the way out in Pennsylvania in Lake Harmony. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I creating this episode? Why am I talking about Lake Harmony? And it's very simple. I actually want to talk about short-term rentals and everything that's going on with Airbnb. I've read a couple of articles here and there, and it seems that there's a lot of drama going on with Airbnb and the way, let's say, things were handled by the company and how certain hosts are very unhappy with the situation. In addition to that, I've seen a ton of videos talking about the next crisis coming and why Airbnb will be the one causing it. So I thought not everything could be this bad, right? I mean, I am out here and I found this place thanks to Airbnb. So what I decided to do is to conduct an interview to the host of this beautiful house that you see right here. And he graciously agreed to be a part of this interview with us today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and meet Carrington Carter. And here we have our special guest, Carrington Carter. Carrington, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
And for those who don't know you, who are tuning into the channel for the first time or already following us but have never seen your face before, can you share with us a little bit about yourself and what you do in real estate?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Carrington Carter. I am a corporate middle manager turned serial entrepreneur and real estate investor developer, really focusing on the vacation rental home space. I'm a co-founder of my vacation rental company called Getaway Society. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing it. And thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. So as some of you know, I actually took a little short staycation here in Lake Harmony, Pennsylvania. And this is actually one of Carrington's home. And so I thought it was a great idea to interview him for today's video about how he's actually managing or maneuvering his rental portfolio, the vacation rental portfolio to be more specific, in the middle of the crisis. So Carrington, can you share a little bit about what was it like before this whole mess, so to speak, started happening? What was it like for you and your rental portfolio at the time?
Sure. Fantastic question. So COVID-19 certainly turned the world upside down, not just for the vacation rental home business, but all of our lives and pretty much every business industry. I would say March and April were particularly rough because the global pandemic was declared, I believe, March 13th. But certainly a lot of cancellations in March and April because there were many stay-at-home orders in place, there were government restrictions, and quite frankly, there was a lot more panic from consumers and travelers because of the uncertainty in the world. So I would say March and April were particularly rough. A lot of places, the Poconos where you are being one, had banned short-term rentals, which is defined as anything less than 1 month. Our other properties in Martha's Vineyard, those were banned as well. Short-term rentals were banned and are still under a brief ban on the vineyard, which will hopefully be lifted next month. The state of Florida, the entire state of Florida was another state that was banned from short-term rentals, again, anything less than a month. But as I'll talk about probably in just a little bit, as it was an opportunity to kind of pivot the business model into some of these long-term stays. So those are becoming a lot more popular, the long-term stays anywhere from a month or longer. And we're starting to see that as one of the benefits actually of what COVID-19 has caused.
And since you talked about this whole shift about long-term rental and how you had to adjust, so I remember before I came here to Lake Harmony, I was sort of like searching through Airbnb, basically. And my understanding is that you also leverage different platforms to sort of like market your rental portfolio, right? I came across your property through Airbnb. Would you say that was the major platform that draw all the business to you, or was it a combination of a lot of them? And what did you do in particular
to sort of like draw people's attention. Like I already know that what really caught my attention was the fireplace right here in the back. But what else did you sort of like do just to get people and say, hey, look, we are still renting out. This is a great time for you to come out here and maybe run away from some of the stress, or like help you cope with some of the stress and still be quarantined, so to speak, but still have fun with it?
A fantastic question. So Airbnb is a very popular platform. It's a household name now that we're all familiar with. And it's just one platform that we list our houses on. Another one is HomeAway, or which used to be called VRBO, but now it's pronounced Verbo. So HomeAway and Verbo are the same company now, and they're owned by the Expedia Group. So I'd probably say 60% of our business is HomeAway Verbo, about 40% is Airbnb, and I'll probably say 10 to 15% are direct bookings that where guests come directly to our website, getawaysociety.com, or they find us on social media. So that's kind of the landscape. Oftentimes you'll hear people use Airbnb as almost like a noun, like I rented an Airbnb, or I went here and got an Airbnb. But there are many other platforms where people list their vacation homes. Airbnb, I would say, made some very interesting decisions during this COVID-19 global pandemic, which made it extremely hard for hosts to manage their business. I think we'll talk a little bit about that later. So I still have a little sensitivities when I hear the word Airbnb as of right now. But I will say one of the pivots that they did make is this whole kind of long-term stay concept that we're talking about. So now prominently on the homepage of their website, I think they have a call out or a window where you can specifically click if you're looking for long-term stays. So I think the long-term stay trend is going to be driven by a number of different things. I think one, as you mentioned earlier, people have been quarantined in their houses, so they're looking for any kind of change of scenery as a way to get out and experience something new.
Right.
So I think that's driving the trend. And there's also this whole, used to be called work from home, but we're calling the work from anywhere movement, which I think is here to stay. You have large companies, Facebook, Nationwide, Twitter, Google, that are allowing their employees to work from home throughout the entire year. And a lot of companies such as Facebook have recently said they want 50% of their workforce to work from home over the next 5 to 10 years. So we think this trend is here to stay. So when you think about kind of long term, if you can, work from, I don't know, New York or Iowa or Idaho or Chicago, why work from somewhere for the entire year when you can literally spend 1 month here, 2 months here, 3 months here, 6 months here? So again, I think one of these trends that we're going to see is, especially for people who are mobile and people who work from home, or maybe empty nesters or people that don't have children, I think the 12-month lease, the standard 12-month apartment lease, is going to come to an end. I think you're going to see a lot shorter apartment leases, and people are going to choose to work from wherever they want, whether it's the Poconos or Martha's Vineyard or Hilton Head.
Right. Perfect. That was very informative. Thank you for sharing. Now, we have people from all kinds of investing levels, so to speak, on our channel. Could you please clarify the distinction between what makes a rental a short-term rental and what's the timeline that will sort of like turn it into a long-term rental and this type of vacation rentals?
Sure. So I think the legal, and a lot of this has evolved over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years as short-term rentals become more popular.
Right.
So the legal kind of definition, or the government definition of short-term rental, is typically anything less than either 28 or 30 days. So pretty much anything less than a month is a short-term rental. And then also when it's longer than that, there's some different tenant landlord laws that come into play. So the legal definition is pretty much less than a month. But I would say typically, depending on the market, the lengths of stays vary. Mm-hmm. Where traditional vacation markets like Martha's Vineyard or Florida or Hilton Head, Gatlinburg, a lot of times people go on vacation, they'll stay the whole week. Mm-hmm. Whereas other markets like the Poconos, or people are going on a weekend vacation in Chicago or Miami, it's typically a weekend or an extended weekend. So Friday, Saturday, check out Sunday, or maybe Thursday through Monday. So it kind of varies, but overall, short-term rentals are less than a month. And depending on the market, it's anywhere from a weekend to a week long.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. Now, you mentioned earlier a little bit about how the pandemic basically just turned everybody's world upside down and things got kind of messy. You were putting a lot of fire drills and working here and there, trying to sort of like manage this as effectively as you can. Would you say Airbnb, even though we're kind of like tapping on the nerve here, but were they resourceful for you? Because I remember reading in different news articles about the help that Airbnb was actually providing to some of these hosts. I've heard about a $250 million fund. I'm not sure if it was a fund or some kind of like assistance to sort of like offset some of the cancellations. I've also heard about a $17 million fund to help the investors pay for their mortgages, because most of us will still have mortgages even though we're renting some of our properties. So would you say that you were the recipient of some of that assistance, or did you basically have to figure everything out by yourself?
Yeah, well, excellent question. And I also have mortgages and property taxes and utilities. So Airbnb, I would say they offered two things. So there was the $250 million fund, and that was basically a subsidy on the cancellations. So Airbnb made the controversial decision to override host cancellation policy and decide to give guests full refunds. And so as a host, as the business owner, you kind of see how your bookings are coming in March, April, May, June, July, throughout the year. And all of a sudden you see these cancellations just totally evaporate your revenue for the entire year. It can be pretty daunting. And if you're managing one property, or if you're managing 10, 20, 100 properties, like that's a big deal. So certainly not a perfect solution, but what they offered was out of this $250 million fund, from reservations that were canceled from March 13th or 14th when the global pandemic was declared through the end of May. So you would get 25% of whatever you were owed per your typical cancellation policy. For example, if you had a cancellation policy where if a guest canceled, you typically would have received $1,000 because they canceled past the deadline. So whatever your cancellation policy was. So if you were owed $1,000 and Airbnb was going to give you $250 of that, 25% of that. So if March, April, May, you had, $10,000 worth of cancellations, then Airbnb would give you, 25% of that. So you get about $2,500. So not perfect. It did show that, they heard the outcry of the hosts and they were trying to soften the blow, so to speak, but certainly nowhere near as much as, quite frankly, you were entitled to. They refunded the money that you had earned. And there was no way to rebook your house, obviously, with everything going on. So it's still a little controversial. The other fund you mentioned, employees of Airbnb all contributed $1 million to this fund because it's something that they wanted to do as a acknowledgement and empathy towards the difficult times that hosts were going through. I think that the founders of Airbnb kicked in an additional $9 million. I think the fund ended up ballooning to about $17 million. But this is just for Superhost, where pretty much you rent out a you rent out a room or two rooms in your house, and you really use Airbnb to cover your bills, cover your mortgages. It's not for large owners or property managers like my company, Getaway Society. Those were the two remedies that they offered.
And what about the other platforms that you would leverage? Was it like, I didn't really hear much about them in the news. I'm not sure if it's because they weren't as popular or maybe they don't market themselves as much. Did you receive any type of assistance from them? Or is it more your own creativity to try to, make things work out during these difficult times?
Sure. Fantastic question. And so the other main platform is HomeAway or Vrbo. And I think they made the right decision. They left it up to the host to decide.
Okay.
So it was totally up to you to enforce or to waive your cancellation policy. They highly encouraged you to either offer a full credit for a future stay or 50% refund. And if you did either of the two, they incentivized you. So they would give you higher rankings on their platform, or they would give you a higher ranking that was equivalent to a 5-star review. So they incentivized you to do what they wanted you to do, but they didn't force you. And I think this was a much, much, much better way to handle the situation rather than to override your cancellation policy. And the reason why business owners have these cancellation policies is it allows them to plan their business. Their business, their livelihood, their employees. And so again, if all of a sudden 60,000 of your revenue evaporates, you had plans for that money, and then when it evaporates, like it causes a lot more difficulty than what needed to happen.
Yeah, not to mention the emotional stress and how it will ripple through the rest of your life and everything else you do. So I came across your posting through Airbnb. So would you say with the remaining of your properties, are they currently rented? Are they still coming to you through Airbnb? Like how is the situation now that some of the short-term ban has been either lifted or partially lifted?
Yeah, a great question. So I would say, people are still anxious to travel. And one of the other trends that I didn't mention about COVID-19 is the increasing demand for drivable leisure destinations. So I don't know about you, but I'm not getting on an airplane anytime soon.
True.
So
I did not think of that. I guess because I'm from New York and I figure, well, the Poconos is close enough. I don't mind driving 2.5 hours, but okay. So that's piking. And so are you seeing an increase in activities now and the rentals where the ban, it's virtually, well, I don't want to say non-existence, but it's more relaxed, so to speak?
Yes. So the Poconos, the July and August bookings we had in place, those weren't canceled and people are still excited to come. And we've had some new bookings for July and August. For June, I think as soon as you leave, we have a group coming from New York. They're going to stay for the entire month and work from home.
Awesome.
Hilton Head has pretty much been on fire throughout the entire year. And Hilton Head is probably the epitome of drivable leisure destinations.
Wow.
People are driving from North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. We have a group coming from Illinois, Kentucky. So Hilton Head is the epitome of those drivable leisure destinations. And then up in Martha's Vineyard, typically it was a nationwide destination where people were flying from all over, but because it's an island, it's a little bit more complex to get to. So the ban hasn't been lifted, but we are getting bookings for July and August and throughout the year from people who are going to drive there. So people coming from Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts. So I would say travel has rebounded. People are looking to get away. They're going to be similar to how you are. They're going to be in the home, kind of enjoying the house and the amenities it has and cooking at home and takeout delivery. So it's going to be a different experience, but I think it'll still be a rewarding experience for people to bond and make memories with family and friends.
Perfect. And those who are actually curious to check out Carrington's posting, I'm going to leave a link down here below in the description box so you can definitely check it out. His houses are beautiful. And Martha's Vineyard was actually one of them that we were looking to book. But then in the end, we were like, well, what if you have to go back to New York? That will be kind of like a long trip to have to come back here. We've actually never left for an entire month. So this is definitely a first for us. But being out here with nature, it's just like, wow. New York City studio, 300 square foot, very tight. 2 people living in there versus a big house, 15 minutes to the lake, walking, 5 minutes running. It's definitely awesome. So thank you so much for making your place available.
My pleasure. Glad you enjoyed it.
And for those who are actually looking to book some of Carrington's house, Carrington, can you walk us through how are you managing new expectations now? Because everything has been changing now. Short term, it's sort of like the equivalent of a long term. I know a lot of people are somewhat still afraid of what might be out there. So how are you adapting to this new era of short-term listing, posting business, so to speak?
Sure. Great question. I would say, again, another one of the benefits from this COVID-19, and it's requiring pretty much any and all industries to really take a close look at their cleaning protocols and what kind of safe and comfortable environment are they ensuring for their guests and their consumers. So whether it's the hospitality industry, whether it's the airline industry, or whether it's everyday retail and restaurants, everyone is really taking a closer look at how they're ensuring a safe, clean environment for their guests. With all that being said, there are fantastic resources like the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic. There's so much attention on COVID-19 right now that there are so many resources and ready-made protocols for small business owners like myself to adopt in order to make sure that we're doing enforcing the right cleaning standards for our properties. So whether it's a certain amount of time between guest stays, or whether it's using a commercial grade Environmental Protection Agency approved cleaning products, or whether it's more disinfection on some of the high touch surfaces like TV remotes, light switches, doorknobs, and things like that. These are just some of the best practices that we've been doing, but that we're also paying even more attention to, just like many players in the industry, such as hotels, airlines, or everyday restaurants.
And now, so that's on the host side. Have you seen any concerns from the customer side? Like, for example, I was somewhat concerned, but I figure, well, we can come in and just clean everything ourselves if needed and stuff like that. But what about the other customers that you've had? Have they demanded certain standards when it comes to keeping everything COVID-19 clean?
We haven't had any demands, but people are certainly asking. They're asking the same question you asked. What are you doing in light of COVID-19 to make sure that your cleaning standards are such that it will keep my family and I safe and healthy in light of these times? And just as I mentioned to you, this was certainly something that we jumped on early. And we're introducing the Getaway Society, our cleaning commitment. So we're introducing kind of our own little program to address any and all concerns. But as I mentioned, it's great for a small business owner because there's so many resources out there that are tackling this problem now, and they're giving you information to help you implement your own cleaning protocols, whether it's the CDC, WHO, Airbnb has also put out their enhanced cleaning protocols. HomeAway Verbo, they're also doing the same. Southwest, United, American. There's so many great resources that you can borrow from to make sure that you are in line with the big companies and who are doing the best to combat this issue.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. This is really helpful. And for those who are actually very concerned about this crisis and how all business owners or even real estate investors are going to be impacted by the virus. As you can see, with every crisis, there's always an opportunity, and you are seeing the living proof of it. Carrington had a rough time at the beginning, but then eventually he adjusted, and now we're having this new experience of what is working from home like. We're no longer tied to our own place. Now you can work pretty much from anywhere in the world, or in the States if you choose to stay within the States. You can just simply travel by car and still enjoy being quarantined, so to speak, in a much nicer environment. So thank you for helping us with that. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Is there anything else you would like to share with the viewers today, Carrington?
No, just thank you for your time listening this morning. I hope something was said that can be a pearl of wisdom that can allow you to apply it to your life or your business or to motivate you. But, just like you just said, even in dire time, there's always opportunity. So it's just about, finding that silver lining and finding that opportunity and becoming stronger and better and more efficient because of it.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching. And once again, do not forget to check out Carrington Post right here in the description box below. And I'll see you everybody next time. And thank you once again, Carrington, for your time.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.